Hi, everyone, and welcome to the My Message podcast. My name is Kyia Mochitani, and I'm your host for today's episode. Every episode, it'll be me right here. And on the My Message podcast, we are working to make our messy life our message. And today on the pod, we have just the most special guest in the whole wide world and just one of the most beautiful souls I think you'll ever meet if you ever get to meet her. It's Jake's mom, Char Stammer. Hello.
Hi, Kyia. Hi, everyone.
Welcome to the pod, Char. We just thought it'd be fun to film like an episode about, Char's journey and like the messages and the things that she's like experienced in life. And I feel like the whole world needs to know. And it's just so good and so pure and so amazing. So Char, before we get into anything, what do you want us to know before we get going? What do you want us to know about you, about your life, about your fam, anything? Tell me.
Oh, thank you, Kyia. I'm so happy to be here. I just adore you so much. I can't believe you and Jake have been together so long. So special. About me, let's see. I have stayed home with both my kids for the last 20 years, which was such a journey in itself because I've been working since I was like 11 years old, doing mailers with my mom, and then I got a job at Northwood Pizza, and so to be a stay-at-home mom and to work in the home was so different. I'm an identical twin, and what I want to tell you is I love my family so much. They mean everything to me.
Char's done a lot of work about conscious parenting and about, creating like a healthy environment in like at home. And so she has been to conferences, she's done work, she's even taught people herself about conscious parenting. So Char, what is conscious parenting and like, what does that mean to me or to somebody listening?
Oh, that's a great question. It's really hard to put conscious parenting into words, but what I would say conscious parenting is about being aware of present moment connection with the person in front of you. It's about being aware of what you're saying and doing, kind of catching your patterns, and then being in that moment with the person and living with what's going on right here and right now, not what happened in the past from fights and things. So just awareness really to me is consciousness.
And it's like creating that like tight bond between you and like your child or you and your spouse kind of thing even, do you think?
Absolutely. Because when you meet people where they're at, there's unconditional love that takes place. There's this joy, there's full acceptance, and just something so different than I ever experienced in the past. So I love everything consciousness, eating conscious marriage, conscious friendships, but it all started with conscious parenting.
So conscious, the word conscious just simply means to be present and aware.
That's what it means to me. Yes, for sure.
So if I were to be like, okay, Char, I am going through a lot. We'll just pretend like this is like our normal conversation. Char, I'm going through a lot right now. I have literally like a million things on my to-do list. Maybe home isn't the best right now. Maybe my relationship with food, maybe it's something, maybe it's this, whatever it is, but I'm in a hard season. How do I take that away from where I am now, and how do I be present in this moment? How do I be conscious? What would you tell me?
Well, I would first tell you to just maybe stop and take a deep breath to get in this moment. And then when you have this deep breath, it kind of just relaxes you. And then you're aware that, okay, maybe I've just kind of spiraled a little bit. I've gotten a little bit off course and I've gotten overwhelmed. And so consciousness brings you back to the present moment. And then you can ask yourself, like, is this such a big deal right now? And you can ask yourself some questions. I call it self-realization, to kind of ground me and get me back to, okay, is this going to matter in a year? And you start asking yourself some questions. How serious is this? Because we can get overwhelmed when we're going through a lot of things. And so consciousness just brings you back to the present moment, almost like reality, if you will, instead of these stories we tell ourselves. I'm so stressed. This is such a big thing. And we can make things bigger than they are when we're not present or conscious.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that's something I definitely struggle with a lot of like Jake and I literally just had this conversation yesterday. It's like when I'm going from one place or one job to right to the next and I have 10 minutes in between, it's so hard for me to be like, call Jake and like be so present in that moment when I'm there, because I have like a million things on my mind. And then I have, this is like my 10 minutes to just like be cool and just breathe, and then like have to be on it again. And, right when I get there kind of thing. But instead it's like, no, but like, look who's right in front of me. Like, it's like Jake is right in front of me. Jake is, all he wants to do is just talk to me. And he was like, okay, maybe you just call me like the last 5 minutes of your call is what we decided, because we were like, I was just like, I don't know, I get so stressed. And then I get like, when he asks me a lot of questions and my mind's literally a million different places, I'm like, homeboy, like, I don't even know right now. I just can't even think for myself for a second. And so, we decided, okay, we're going to call last 5 minutes before you get to wherever you need to be. And then I just want that 5 minutes of just present moments. But is that even healthy? Is like a 5 minute, like, is that?
You know what? I do think that's healthy, because on my journey with parenting, I thought about this one day. I could have spent the entire 20 or 18 years with Jake before he went to college, and Haley, if I was unconscious, not being aware, busy, and not being present moment. I could have spent all those years just go, but we wouldn't have had that connection. And then when I shifted into consciousness, I was aware that Jake's a teenager. He wants to be with Kyia. He wants to be with his friends. I didn't need to be with him all the time. But if I had 5 minutes with him, just present moment, and I thought about this 5 minutes, that's funny. If I just had 5 minutes of present moment, it filled me with so much love. And so I think 5 minutes a day, even a minute a day, is more than a lifetime of unconscious connection. So yeah.
I love that. One thing I admire about you is like how you've dealt with trials and tribulations that come your way, and like how you have been able to take such a hard thing and turn it into so good. So if you want to tell me about that situation, or like whatever you want to say about anything of it, I want you to share, because it's your story, but so good.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had a few things happen that were hard on me. When I was younger, went through a robbery situation, and I remember I was able to bring good out of it. And then I got married to my high school sweetheart, Brad, who's just the best. And he went through cancer, and the kids were 2 years old. Haley wasn't even quite 2, and Jake was 5. And we brought good out of that. And so I was able to do that, but nothing prepared me for 3.5 years ago when I got a call from my sister's husband and saying that my sister died, my twin, my identical twin. And you don't know what you're going to do. So I was numb and kind of frozen, or in this limbo, if you will, like of shock, I guess I would say. And I just cannot believe, I believe what God did for me in that moment. You don't know, you can't prepare. I never thought about losing my twin. We were only 46. And I only know my experience. And my experience is that I was comforted. I was made to know, this knowing that everything was going to be okay. And I was telling my family, like, everything's going to be okay. And my sister Kim was talking to me one day shortly after, and she's like, you're so strong, and you're there for everyone. And I was like, I can't even explain it, Kim. I have no words. And when Kyia asked me to be on the on her podcast, I feel so honored. Just love you. I thought about, like, I do Bible study, and I was like, there's Bible verses that can explain this a little bit better. And I looked up a few, and one of them I'd like to share is from Romans 12:2, and it says, "Do not be conformed to this world. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And I feel like that's what God did for me. He renewed my mind, my spirit, and my heart as soon as she passed. And then I wrote, transformation happens when your heart moves from self-centeredness to God-centeredness. So as my ego, or just my human side, I thought I would just want to die and lay down and never get up. But that's not the plans God had for me. He literally woke me up every day. Not that it would be bad if I laid in bed for a year, because it was my twin and my best friend, and we talked 5 times a day. But he didn't. He's had me get up every single day and be in the Word and love the people around me and talk about my journey. This is the most present I've ever been. And I have daily practices, but he has me so on fire for people, love, which Amy was all about. So I just feel that my journey is just perfect for me. And I don't even know how I could ever repay God or everyone around me that supported me.
I remember that so vividly, like 3.5 years ago, of being here that next day. And it was like this, like, I don't know how to explain it, but the way I saw you is like, you were so heartbroken, you were so sad, but like, you were like, you handled it and you were so strong and you had so much faith. And to me, like, that was like, if Char can get through this, like, and be like this and come out like this, like, oh my gosh, like, anything that comes my way, like, I can do that too, kind of thing, which is really inspiring for me in the sense of like, I don't know how I would even be able to deal with that, or like not take whatever, like, that situation and say, like, you know what, like, I'm throwing in the towel. Like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This is so hard. But you turned it into like such good. I don't know. It was just like I literally envisioned you like right there in your dining room, of like just like crying and feeling your feelings truly, but like being able to be like, but I'm okay. Like this is okay. And like, I gotta like make do out of it. And I don't know, it was very inspiring for me. And still to this day, like 3.5 years later, like you still go through like grieving, and you still go through like a healing kind of process. And you still see Amy everywhere. So what are some instances where you're like, oh my gosh, Amy, this was totally you right now. I literally see you in heaven. Tell me how like God, uses a butterfly or whatever as like a spiritual thing for you, of like, this is Amy.
Yeah, Kyia comes over all the time, and I always share, like, Kyia, you wouldn't believe. I call him God winks. I literally, Amy's everywhere. So, our human side, when she passed, I did say, like, how am I going to not talk to her every day? We talked all the time, and literally she's everywhere. I talked to her more than I did when she was physically here, because I have signs every day. Just yesterday, I was just sharing with Kyia that I went to the mall to meet a friend for lunch, and as soon as I walked in the mall, a whole group of special needs, I guess adults actually, came walking towards me, and I had a memory of Amy and I at the Mission Viejo Mall. And as soon as she saw special needs, she just had such a heart for special needs people that she would run over and just hug them and kiss them. And I was like, okay, what are you doing? You don't know them. And she just was so comfortable. And then as soon as I thought, okay, Amy, hi, okay, you're always with me. Then 2 little twin identical girls walked by me, and I was like, okay, I can't make this up. This is like, she's always right there. I see butterflies. I got a tattoo of a butterfly on my wrist because Amy was so free. Her spirit was so free, and we were going to get butterflies. So I got a butterfly, and I see them everywhere, especially when I'm by myself and I'm thinking about her, and a butterfly will literally almost hit me in the face. And I'm just like,
you're like, Amy, girl, I got to see.
Always. And so I'm like, okay. So I think if you lose someone and you really want to be close with them, the memories and the God winks, it literally keeps their spirit alive as if she never left. And so, and I know I'll see her again. And until then, she reminds me I'm right here, always loving you, right in your heart, to remember me and to honor me. And I try to honor her, but she's a big shoe to fill because she is such a big spirit.
What was, to wrap up, like, about Amy, like, what is one thing that you learned from Amy or the passing of Amy? Like, what's like one thing that, I guess maybe the passing of Amy, like, what's one thing you learned the most that like this has helped you with the most?
I would say unconditional love. She never judged anyone. For whatever reason, I tended to think I could help people, which falls into judgment. I hate to say that, but it was true. And I was like, oh, why don't you try this? Why don't you do this? Amy never met anyone that strangers or friends, whenever she'd meet up with them, she was so present with them. And this unconditional love that came through her, she was always listening to them and praying with them. And so I think about that often, and I would love to have her encourage me, even from the other side, especially from the other side, and remember that amazing way of being, which is this unconditional love, and just listening to people and meet people where they're at, and then just pour love and prayer into them. And I would love to do that daily in honor of her.
When I think of you, Char, I do think of unconditional love. Like, I feel like when I was writing the notes for this podcast, I wrote like there's so much we could talk about because we can talk for hours, but like, what's something that like I really want us to hone in on? And it was like the first thing that came up was like a message about unconditional love, because I feel like no matter who is in front of you, no matter where they came from, no matter what they look like, no matter if they wronged you even, like, you love that person for who they are. And I feel like that's just so inspiring. I know, like, you joke, but like I've literally heard some of like your friends say like, okay, what would Char do in this situation? Like, how do I like love my like crazy teenager that's driving me insane? Like, what would Char do? And I feel like you've just like left that like imprint. So like you are that like unconditional love that you want to be every day. Like, I truly believe that. And it's like moments when I come here and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just had the longest day, I just want to cry and just like whatever, you still love me through that. Do you know what I mean? Like I can come in here like, oh my gosh, like, Char, today was just so hard for me, I just feel like crying and throwing in the towel, and you're just like, but I love you. Like, you'll never not tell me that. Does that make sense? I'm kind of getting teary-eyed, but
Thank you.
yeah, you are that. So it's really good.
Oh, thank you, Kyia.
My gosh, I'm such a I don't cry, don't like crying, but wow.
Amy probably wanted us crying about her and
Probably.
how she started all this.
Probably. Like, one of the first times I met Amy, she was like, I hung out with her, was we all went ice skating, and I hate ice skating. I'm not an ice skater, and I was a wall hugger, but we went to pizza before, and it was like when Jake and I first started dating. It was me, Jake, Amy, and then Taylor was there, Haley was there, right? And then Tanner, right? I don't remember.
I don't think if Tanner was there, but I feel bad if he was. Sorry, Tanner.
Anyway, well, we all went to pizza, and Char's like, okay, do you guys need to go potty before? And Amy just started, like, in the middle of the pizza shop, just started dying laughing that Char was, like, saying potty. Like, she went on for, like, 5-10 minutes of just dying hysterically laughing. We're all looking at each other like, Amy, like, what is going, like, what's so funny? Like, we don't understand. It was, I'll never forget that. That was...
She was teasing me because I'm asking my high school son and his new girlfriend, do you need to go potty? But that's like, my soul is so nurturing, and like, I think everybody's a child, and like they all need help. And Amy's like, I don't even ask my kids, let alone potty. And so I was like, what, is this weird? And she just said such a way about making everything so funny.
Yeah, she was such a light. And in your story about Amy, like, you mentioned God winks. There was one story that you told me about a God wink that I don't think I'll ever forget. And it was about at a thrift store, Crossroads. What was it called?
Yeah, Crossroads.
I want you to tell that story, because that is like, I got the chills and was like freaking out. I remember I was at school, and my sorority house at the time. Like I was painting coolers with like my friends, and you called me, and I was like, and like the whole time I was like, and my friend's like, what is she saying? And I'm like freaking out. I don't even know like what's happening. So tell that story.
Oh my gosh, that is my favorite story. So I believe it's hard to put into words, but when somebody passes, and for me, I fully surrendered to God, and He brings the Holy Spirit to you. And I believe that the Holy Spirit, and I think Amy also somehow comes through and helps me help others. And I ask every day for God to use me. And so one day I was in my bathroom, and the way it works for me is I think that it's me thinking it. At first, this is how I thought. And then now I've come to find out that it's the Holy Spirit and Amy using me. I call it my A team, God, Amy, and the Holy Spirit. And so, all right, A team, but sometimes I'm not aware. Anyway, it's a long story, but basically I was in my bathroom getting ready, and I had this knowing or this thought that I should go to Crossroads, this store that Amy and I used to go to in Newport. Now, this is 40 minutes away. And I was like, oh, yeah, I need to go get a wedding dress. So I'm thinking about going there. And then on the way, I had a thought to go to the Irvine one. And then this strong knowing that, no, you need to go to the Newport one. I should have known I was being guided by the Holy Spirit, my A team. So I showed up at the store, and I noticed one of the workers. He was about 20. He looked about 21, 22 years old. And I remember thinking, oh, he looks so sad. And I was just happy that I could meet people now that I'm a little more conscious and practice this work through sitting still and doing some of my daily practices on how to be more present or conscious, whatever word you want to use. I remember thinking, wow, I really noticed he's struggling and sad. And he was reminding me of like Kyia and Jake, their age, and just how sweet these kids are at this age. And he looks so down. And I was just about to go over and say like, hey, everything's great. You know, God is good. And then I had this thought like, that's toxic positivity. That's like not meeting him where he's at. I wanted him to be happy where I'm at. So God literally, like, I felt this like presence pull me back. And then in my heart, I could hear, and in my mind, I could hear, go gently. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm really getting this spirit thing down. I'm like hearing things, like it was like overwhelming, but I could literally hear, be gentle. And so I was like, oh, that's good. So I was really gentle, and my human way can be very outgoing and loud and in your face. And then my spiritual side, when I'm in my heart space, I can be really gentle. So anyway, I found some clothes, and I talked to a few girls, and I was really in my gentle spirit, and it was really nice. And I really felt like God was using me, and it was really special. When I went to check out, the same boy that I was worried about was checking me out, and he said, he's just scanning his items, and I could feel actually him sad, and I could hear in the Holy Spirit saying to me, ask him if he needs prayers. And I was like, wait, what's happening? Where are these thoughts coming from? Like, oh yeah, it's the Holy Spirit. And I remember Amy telling me the Holy Spirit will use you when you listen. And we have had this conversation before she passed. So, and then he'll use you if you keep doing it, if you'll answer him. So I was like, I don't know how this is all happening. This is so amazing. So I just said, excuse me, do you need prayers? And he looked right up at me, and he's like, what'd you say? And I was like, oh man, I'm kind of embarrassed. And I was like, I was just wondering if you needed prayers. And he looked right at me and said, yes, I need prayers for my girlfriend. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And then I said, okay, I'll be praying for your girlfriend, and I'll be praying for you, because I could see that he was visually sad. And then he scanned a few more of my items, might have found a few goodies, some sweatshirts. I didn't find the dress I was after. And anyway, he looked right up at me, and he looked right in my eyes and said, I want to thank you for your kindness. And just was like soul to soul, present moment consciousness. It was so beautiful from a stranger. And then I kind of was like, oh my gosh, I have kindness cards I give out. Let me give you one. And so I found a kindness card, and I handed it to him, and he just said, thank you. And then I was leaving, and these words just came out of my mouth. And there is a Bible verse I can't recall, but it's like, he will give you the words. And I literally said to him, I need you to know that everything will be okay. I mean, everything. And then I walked out of this. He's like, thank you. And then I walked out the store and I just started crying because I knew I was being used from the Holy Spirit and my A team. And it was so emotional. And I realized that I can go gently and I can listen to what is being prompted. And it was just so beautiful and amazing. It was like a miracle because we get so busy in our days that we don't sit still and we're not quiet. And if we're not quiet, we can't be used. It's all the way I make sense of it. So 3 days later, I thought that was amazing. I came home and I said, Brad, I was used today. And he's like, you're used every day since she passed. And I was like, this one's special. I was like, this one's extra special. God like held me back. And then I told these words came out of my mouth and I was gentle. I wasn't toxic positivity and all this stuff. So 3 days later, I get a Facebook message from one of my sister's friends. And I thought it was the end of the story, but it wasn't. She ended up texting me, Facebook messaging me that she has a daughter that struggles and that she was struggling this one day 3 days ago really bad, and she had some depression and she just didn't know what to do, and she was just distraught, but something told her to go into work. So she did get herself into work, and she worked at Crossroads. And she writes that then her boyfriend works there too, and that I ended up coming in and she recognized me because Amy and I are identical twins. Now, I had never met her, but she had met Amy and she knew I was her sister. And then it all unfolded. I was led to her boyfriend to ask him if he needed prayers, and then gave him a kindness card. He gave it to her. And then so my friend was in tears saying, like, that was a miracle guided by Amy and God, and you were there used. Like, she knew it, and I had known it, but I didn't know I knew them. And it was the most amazing story. Hopefully I explained it that you're following.
No, it was perfect.
But I just said, okay, God, am I 18? This is real. You know, sometimes we'll wait till we get to heaven to see the impact we made on others by listening to God and listening to our inner knowing and our hearts. And so it was so special. And so I just thank Amy and God every day for this beautiful conscious life that I'm able to encounter daily and experience.
When you told me that story, I was like, that is, you can't tell me God's not real at that point. Like, that is just like so pure and so good. And I was just listening to a Sadie Robertson podcast, and she had, oh my gosh, I forget her name, but it was about like a similar situation. She was at oh my gosh, this lady was so funny, but she was at like the airport, and there was this man who had very long nails, like a lot of like hair, and like it was so knotted, and she felt the Holy Spirit like say, like, you go ask him if you want, like, if you can brush his hair. She's like, are you, I can't do that. Like that. And then, so she goes up to him, and then she's like, excuse me, sir, I was wondering if I can brush your hair. And he was like, what? Kind of like how, what, you were saying. She goes, oh man, this is really testing me. She says it again. He's like, what? I can't hear you. Got to speak up, ma'am. And she goes, I was just wondering if I can brush your hair. And the whole place went silent, she said. And he was like, sure, if you want. She goes, and I don't have a hairbrush. Do you have a hairbrush? And so she ended up brushing his hair, and it took a long time, and she was able to pray over him, and just felt like this like emotional, like, oh my gosh, like her heart so full and like so full of love. It was like, reminded me exactly of that story. But Char has like so many God winks. It's like, it's so crazy. And I am inspired by how like in tune you are, not only with yourself, but also like with God, and like with the journey, and like what path that you're on. And also the fact that like you are actively like working and doing the work, putting in the work and like the time to get to where you are. You know, has anyone ever, I don't know, I've never asked you this. Has anyone ever told you like, Char, you're so lucky to have the life that you have?
Probably Brad. Just kidding.
No, but like your friends are like, are you like, you're just so lucky and blessed? Like, does anyone ever?
You know what? They've never used those words, but they have said, I have so many special friends. That one of my special friends, my friend Sean, she's like, I love what you're doing because I get to benefit from your work. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. So just me having my experiences
Right.
and sharing them, it's helping her because she has to have a full-time job and she doesn't get the time to meditate daily and spend time in the Word, spend quiet time with God. And it's funny because Haley's going to be 18 this year and Jake will be 21. And I said to Brad, well, I guess my plan years ago was to stay home and then I guess get a job after. I didn't really realize I'd be 50 years old, but do you want me to go back to work? And he's like, we were talking about it. I was like, because honestly, I feel like I have a job. And this is quoting Rick Warren, but like, I work for God. And this is my truth. I literally wake up every day and I work for God. I work to heal myself, sit still with myself, listen for my A team, and see where I'm moved to go and be guided to. And it's a full-time job. In between, I'm going to softball games and hanging out with Jake and Kyia if that's possible. All the people I love, my sister's family, my mom, my sister, whoever I can, my aunt, my friends. But I don't stress about it anymore. I'm just moved to go. It's like where the wind takes me is where God takes me. It's so amazing.
I feel like the work that you do and like how much time and effort you put into it and like how you fill up yourself so much, not only, but like you are so present and so good to like other people and like are actively like seeking and, doing that in itself is like, I don't think if, say like, a mom, I don't think like people could get to that point. I don't know. I just feel like you just have something just so special and like the time, the effort and like what you do, it really is a job, but I would like, when I think of job, I think of like, it's a task. It's like something you have to do, but it's like, it's this like beautiful life that like God is like presented in front of you. You know what I mean? And people around you and strangers at crossroads 40 minutes away get to benefit from that. And I feel like, I don't know, we call Amy like Angel Amy, but I think you're Angel Char. I think you're in real life Angel Char. And what's like I don't like Angel Amy like is AA, but like Cherishable Char or something. Like you were just like literally just like a real life angel like on earth to help and to serve other people. And it's so cool. And it's such a blessing that I'm able to be like around that 24/7. But like I'm able to be around you and like feel that for me. And I think like my hurt and like the hardships that I'm going through in this moment, I feel like you fill my missing. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like you fill the part where I'm lacking, and I feel like that's just such a blessing. And like God had that in my life and like you in my life, like for like such a reason. I remember like when Jake and I first started dating or like even talking, they were like, everyone would tell me like, Kyia, you just got to meet Char. Like you have to meet Char. And I was like, who is Char and why haven't I met her? And I'm kind of nervous. And they're like, no, you need to meet her. Like you just will love her to death. And like, I feel like ever since Jake and I started dating, like you and I have always had like similarities and like had, like we get each other. Like if you want to get to this point, like you can get there, you just got to do it kind of thing. We're like, okay, Char, you get it. But I feel like that's just really inspiring and definitely like not only left like an imprint on me or your family, but like so many other people. Like remember when like Amy passed, like you heard stories, you're like, I don't even know this person. And they're telling me and crying to me about how good Amy was to them. I feel like that's how you are, and Amy just gets to help you from heaven, which is such a blessing. But
oh, thank you, Kyia. It's so hard for our human side to like take that in, but it's true for all of us. If we really want to be used, we have to hear it and take it into our hearts and say, oh, I am doing it and I want to continue. It's just hard for me to take compliments, I guess, or to hear the impact I have. It's just like overwhelming to my heart, even though that's my desire, my 100% desire. it's funny, when Amy was alive, she would say crazy things because she was such, like I said, out of the box butterfly. She just would go, and she told me once, like, yeah, we're angels here on earth. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, we want to help people. And then when she crossed, I'm like, this is crazy, because I feel like you're an angel helping others still. And I feel like you're helping me, my A team, so that I can be an angel on earth. And it just like blows my mind to think about what she knew while she was here, or what she prophesied as this beautiful Christian spirited woman. Like, it is.
Okay, so has faith always been a big part of your life, or is it like something that you kind of had to learn over time?
A little bit of both. My mom was really good about getting us to church every Sunday. We went to St. Mark's Presbyterian Church in Newport Beach, and I have great experience and memories there. So I had the foundation of church and singing, and singing about the Bible. And so I believe I had a really good foundation. But I think a real foundation is, and living with God is, a relationship in your heart.
Yeah.
And it took my sister's passing for me to have full surrender, open heart, and a huge calling on me understanding my calling, if you will. So the work for me is going to Bible study, reading the Word every morning with Brad and the kids. It's sitting still in meditation, in prayer, daily. And so I say it like that because there is work involved in order to be used, I believe. And I'm so thankful for I think God leads you where you need to be. And at the time, I maybe couldn't handle all that, because we have seasons in our lives, and it's all perfect timing because it's His timing.
I love that. Did you raise like Jake and Haley like in a church or spiritually? I don't even know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I look back, and I was very unconscious, meaning very patterned. Just woke up and did the same thing every day. So I ended up being confirmed Catholic right before I got married, so we could be married in the Catholic Church, because every religion has, stipulations and different things. So I became Catholic. I definitely liked the religion. It was just I didn't have the relationship with Jesus that I wanted. So we would go, and I got something out of it, and I love it, and I have nothing bad to say about the Catholic religion at all. And wherever somebody's moved in relationship wise, then I'm all for it. So we would go to the Catholic Church with the kids, and we would sit. They were little, so they did get that foundation when they were young. And then they were confirmed in like second grade. I think it was called confirmation, I think. And they were baptized Catholic. Anyway, gosh, this was so long ago, I'm forgetting all the steps. But they ended up wanting to go to Saddleback Church, which is more of a Christian based. And Brad and I started going. I got Brad to go, and then we've been going there ever since, but mostly in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's.
Yeah, because I remember when Jake and I were going to get baptized, he's like, but I'm baptized Catholic. And I was like, whatever, like it's on your heart, like your game to do, you know what I mean? And so he was like, you know what, I am going to get baptized. Like I brought it up to him, and I was like, you know what, I really want to get baptized. I feel like I'm ready, like now's the time, like no better time than the present. And I was like, if you ever want to, like we could do it on the same day if you ever like whatever. And I was like, but I'm gonna leave that decision up to you. And I was like, just let me know. And I ended up knowing like the day before or something that he was going to get baptized, because he was like, I don't know, maybe, like we'll see, like I'm gonna pray about it, whatever. And so he was like, no, I am. And I was like, all right, here we go. So it was a really cool moment, I feel like, that we got to spend together. But speaking of relationships, how do you create like a healthy marriage or relationship? Because like you said, like you and Brad started dating in high school, which is like when Jake and I started dating. And so I look up to your guys' marriage in the sense. So like, what's like your piece of advice you would tell me?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. But for me personally, and like the things I don't do well at, which would be listening, because I love to talk. I think God's worked wonders in me. I think sitting still has helped me, helped my brain. I mean, I'm pretty sure I have ADD, not to like label, but it's helpful to know like, why is my brain going squirrel, this and that. But I think that becoming in grief class after Amy passed, they use this term, be a heart with ears. So don't just listen, but really listen to understand somebody. To be compassionate, because before it was like barely listening to him, running around. It's busy raising 2 kids. Sometimes you can be like 2 ships passing. But I started really caring what he had to say one day and just interested, because we think really differently. And I think a lot of times I tried to just get him to think like I did or get my
that's
way.
Jake and I, yeah.
And so one day I was like, wait a second, Brad has really good ideas. They're different than mine. And so I think God just started opening my heart, and I started being interested in the way he was thinking and wanting. And I started laughing about a lot of things and like, really, you think that way? I was thinking this. And it was funny. The other day I had coffee with my neighbor who's 86, and I said something about Brad and I are so different. And he said, well, that's good, because what would you have to talk about if you were the same?
It's good.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Brad and I are always having these rich, amazing, understanding, compassionate conversations now and curious conversations because of our differences and because of our different ways of thinking. And so I'm like, it's so true. That's probably the secret to marriage, is just being wanting to know, but you'd have to get the curiosity, and you have to let your ego also be at bay, because if not, then you're just going to want to fight them and prove your way.
Right. No, Jake and I definitely had to get over that hump of like say we're cooking, or like even like silly things like cleaning the dishes. Like he cleans the dishes so different than I clean the dishes, or like he drives so different than the way I drive. And like sometimes it like drives him or I batty. I'm like, he'll say like, you're driving in the middle of the road. Like, why are you driving in the middle of the road? I'm like, well, you're like hugging like the curb, and like you're going to hit a car next to you. Like that's parked on the side. And so we kind of just like laugh now, where it's like, okay, you have your way, I have mine. We work so different. We always say that. Like if we ever get into disagreements, like we think so different, we are so different, we work so different. We establish that. And so then we like come up with like a compromise, or like a way of like, how do we go about it better? Because we are just like totally different souls, where I'm like constantly like this, and he just is like a chill, mellow, like super. He said this in the podcast episode we just filmed. He's like, I'm never too high, I'm never too low. And I'm like, yeah, like you're never like so down where it's like, oh my gosh, where I get there, or you're never so high where you're jumping off the roof and like wanting to run around the house 50 million times, or I can get there. And so he's just always just like a go with the flow, with like a chill, like I'm like I'm on cruise control, just cruising like through whatever happens to me, like good, bad, happy, sad. He's just, I'm good. And I'm like, what? So you're like telling me like you never get like really anxious or like overthink like a situation or a conversation, or no. And I'm like, what? Like I want to know how I can get that simple of a brain, because my brain is so like crazy wired. I have a million thoughts going a million miles per second, and I just like need to like slow down, like be on chill mode. And so, but then he'll say like, but you bring out like the adventure in me, or you bring out like how to feel and talk about like my emotions, because he's not like a really deep person, and I just can talk deep all day long, 24/7. Like I would rather do nothing else than just sit and talk deep all day long. Like those are like my favorite conversations of like, when you were 13 years old, like what was your biggest insecurity? And then he'll say like, I don't remember, like, and I was like, no, but just tell me something. And then I'll say, oh, that's probably why. So this, and then like, we'll just like, that's like my favorite thing to do.
I love that so much. See, so opposites attract. There's something to that.
We're just like so different. It's like the weirdest thing. Like we're so different, but it works so well. Like I even said in my podcast, we had a question come up where it was like, what are your similarities and what are your differences? And we have like a few similarities and like they're so good, but like we're also just so different. We're I don't know, it just works so well.
I love that so much.
It's
Well,
good.
I think it's like meeting people where they're at
Right.
with this unconditional love that
Right.
Angel Amy showed
Right.
us.
Right.
And that's the key.
Right.
And then it's an adventure with the person that thinks so different.
Yes.
And it's a shift in your mind. Instead of
Yes.
getting upset,
Yes.
you're like, wait a second, this is amazing.
Yes. It's like shifting your mindset and the way to like see the way you want to see. It's like I don't like Jake and I used to literally butt heads all the time because I was in the sense of like, I'm on this crazy like rapid journey. Like I want all these dreams. I want blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, but you need to hop on the train. Like, come on, Jake, da, 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 da. And he's like, whoa, girlfriend, chill. Like, this is me right now. Like, I'm good. And I would be like, but you don't understand. Like, come on. Like, and he's just like, whoa. And then at first it like was like, had me like build up like kind of like a resentment towards him. But then I was like, had to shift my mind of like, no, but like he is him in this moment, and like that's so pure and that's so good. And so it took me like a lot of, like inner work of like meeting him where he's at and like seeing him for all that he is and not all that I want him to be, because at the end of the day he'll never be who I want him to be. He's always going to be him, and that's so good, right? And so I had to deal with all of those, and I hate to admit that, but I was just crazy. I'm a crazy girl.
Been there, done that. Trust me. I have the same story.
Yes. So but we're on the come up.
That's all that matters.
It's all that matters. And then like something else will come up, and then like I feel like when Jake and I have conflict, and like maybe like if you and Brad ever like have dealt with this, like it's not that like it's easier now, but I feel like we just handle it better. Like if there's like a disagreement, or if there's like, oh, I really didn't appreciate how you did this, or really it's like it like gets over like this because we handle like the hardship better. It doesn't get easier. I don't think like a relationship or like your marriage or whatever like will ever get so easy. There's always going to be trials and tribulations, but we just handle so much harder things better,
I love that. It's quicker.
Yes, it's quicker. It's like, okay, we're chill.
Put in simple.
Yes,
it's quicker.
Yes. And like I'll have like my friends tell me like, oh, me and this boy were in a fight and this and this, and like I was like, oh, I was there, but maybe my sophomore year of high school, but I graduated from there. We've been there, girlfriend. Okay. So about relationships, what do you think, like, when I think of a relationship between like a mother and a daughter, or like a father and a son, or like, parent to a child, like, what do you think like is the major disconnect between the two? Like when you think of like maybe like a broken family, maybe when you think of like some kind of like disconnect, like what do you think like the major cause of that is?
So for me, and the things I struggled with, so I didn't have a lot of emotional intelligence or a lot of emotions. I had them, but I just pushed them away. I didn't validate them. And so for me, my prayer and what I think is so important for a parent and child would be an emotional, intelligent relationship. One that honors each other, listens to each other's feelings, is able to allow their child to be sad in a moment and not try to fix them, to hear them, to be able to give hugs and love. And this is just all from my desires and my experience. One that meets them where they're at, whatever that child is. So when I found out that Jake was an introvert, that's really difficult for someone that's an extrovert. I was seeing it, and I was trying to get him to be outgoing like I am. And then one day God's like, when are you going to meet him where he's at? When are you going to see how amazing he is? Being an introvert, I think, is actually maybe even more special than an extrovert, because they can actually be by themselves,
right,
and get to know themselves. I need people's energy to fill me.
Yes.
So I think that's what I would say. But from my biggest teacher, which is Dr. Shefali, she's taught me so much. Her answer, which I think is worth sharing, is that parents are not in the same moment as their children is the biggest disconnect. She says that kids are usually, let's go with kids. Kids are usually in the present moment, in that moment, and parents are usually in the future or in the past. In the past of all the times that child didn't pick up their stuff, so they're going to yell excessively in this moment, instead of just saying, hey, can you pick your backpack up? They'll say like, why is your backpack always here? They're in the past right now. They're not in the present moment. It's just a backpack. It's neutral. It's one time. But we go to the past or we go to the future where we're planning dinner. We have like, oh my gosh, my husband's coming home. He's going to want dinner, whatever your thoughts are. Brad's not that way, but some dads want dinner on the table at 6. But you still want dinner. You have to go to Target. You have to call your sister. You have all these thoughts. So you're in the future when they show up and they're like, hey, mom, they're trying to talk to you and you're not listening. Kind of like what you shared about when you called Jake but you're aware of it. That's amazing. Most people aren't aware that their mind is in the future. So the kid doesn't feel that emotional connection because the parent's not there. They're either in the future or the past. I lived mostly the future, but I lived both. So I was never in the present moment. And let me just share really quick. After I went to Shafali's event, I had my mouth open the whole time. Like, what are you telling me? I thought I had a pretty good relationship with my kids. Come to find out, there's so much more I can learn and grow from and connect. And it was exciting to me. It wasn't depressing. It wasn't like, oh, I'm horrible. I'm not good at this. It's like, wow, I have so much to learn. So when I got home, I said to myself, okay, I'm not just going to learn it. I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to take action. So I said to myself, I'm going to put down the imaginary checklist, which I had this imaginary checklist every day. Okay, when Jake gets home at 3, at 3:05, he's eating a snack. At 3:10, he's getting up. At 3:20, he's changing. At 3:25, we're leaving out the door. I mean, we kind of had to be on that crazy schedule with sports. But I'll never forget when he got home, I thought, he's in the moment on his iPad. He's, 10 years old or whatever he was when I first started this work. Yeah, he was about 10 because it's about 10 years ago. Anyway, I remember thinking, wait, don't go after him with all the checklists. Meet him where he's at. Like Shafali said, be in the present moment, child to parent present moment. So I walked over to him and I sat down and he's waiting for me to say like, get up. What are you doing? Get off the iPad. Instead, I just smiled at him and I looked at him and I didn't say anything, but I felt like his soul said to me, you're here. You're finally here. And I was so touched by the way it made me feel that I was in the present moment for the first time with my child in 10 years because I got so caught up in the busyness. And she's right that we're not in the same moment. So I was in the same moment, and that's what my journey's been. I would like to have more of those amazing feelings, and I want to free them from all the unconsciousness that comes out of my mouth when I'm not in the present moment.
That's really good. That's like really good in the sense of I remember like one time telling my parents like my dad, he's such a culprit. I'll tell him to his face. I'm not talking crap about him, but like he'll like play games on his phone and I'm trying to talk to him like, oh my gosh, like this happened in my day. Like I want to tell him, but he's like, worked X amount of hours. And so he's sitting on his phone and I'm like, Dad, can you put down your phone? Like, Dad, for a second. And so I'll literally have to grab his phone. I was like, basically what you're telling me, I've literally said this word to word. I'll tell him to his face, but I'm like, Dad, you've literally like, you're telling me that your phone's more important than my conversation right now with you. Like, that's berserk. Like, that's crazy. That's wild. And I'm so blunt and so like cutthroat in the sense, like I'll tell him exactly how it is. And they'll be like, okay, well, I'm sorry, like whatever. But it's true. It's like, I wish I didn't have to, say that to him. I wish it was just like, not that like right when I walk through the door, phone's down. Oh, Kyia's here. It's like, oh, like if you're busy, it's like, oh, hey, 1 second, Kyia, like let me just finish this real quick. If you need to like go do something, go do that real quick, and then boom. Or maybe him starting, oh, how are you? Or just something like that where it's like, it doesn't have to be too deep and feelsy. Like my family, we're not a feelsy family around here. We don't like, we're just not. And so I feel like that's so important. And yeah, there's a lot I want to say about parenting, but that's a song for another time. What's one hard truth that like you think a parent needs to hear? that like a parent who's like, oh my gosh, like I work a full-time job. I literally like have so much on my plate. Like my kids are driving me wild. Here's an iPad. Like you just need to shut up. Or like, oh my gosh, like my kid has such bad behavioral issues, like whatever. Like I nanny kids, so I kind of see like a lot of whatever. And especially in that prime age of like 2, 3, and 4, I'm like, okay, I really see how tough a toddler is. But what's like the hard truth that you like that a parent needs to hear to have that like connection that you've longed for and that you have now with your kids?
Yeah, that's such a good question. A hard truth for me would be, what I would say to a parent would be, first off, and I like to use encouraging words, they're only here for 18 years. When you're stuck, you feel stuck and you feel like it's Groundhog's Day and you're like making another lunch. And, you know, now I say I get to make another lunch. I get to do more laundry. You know, it's all about the way we reframe.
Yeah.
But I would say it's just a short time and you will miss it because they're going to be away from you for 80 years if they live to 100, and you're going to be gone. And I'm here in August. I'll have both my kids out of the house. And so it is done. So I would encourage you. The hard truth is they're only here 18 years. Like, put in the time to learn about whatever you need to learn to be more present, to be more loving. And a hard truth is kids need hugs. They need emotional intelligence. They don't just need good grades. They don't just need to work hard and get a job.
Or go to college.
Go to college. They don't just, that's important. That's not the most important. And it's not for everyone. And I just think to be able to meet your kids where they're at and 100% check your ego, it's usually the thing that's leading you.
Yeah.
And so, and if you don't know what an ego is, research it. It's your lower self. It is your lower self with fear.
Yeah. I remember like when I started nannying, like one of the families that I nannied for, like they would act out and I would get kind of frustrated. I'm like, you have to act this way. You have to be this, like, you have to behave correctly, like when I'm here. And at first, like, it just made me, like, I would get so overstimulated. My heart would start pounding. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is, like, the hardest thing to do ever. And then, like, I finally realized, like, she literally just needs love at the end of the day. And so I had this, like, epiphany. And, you know, I had this epiphany where I just would go up to her and I'd just give her a hug. I literally would just go up and give her a hug, or I'd just like rub like the top of her head and like give her a kiss on her head, or I'd just like go up to her and be like, I hope you know how much I love you. Like, you are just so awesome. Or like constantly give her like positive affirmations, because I feel like that's so important to instill like in a kid at a young age. And it's been night and day. Like, I can't even explain it to you, because when she felt like I was getting frustrated with her, all she wanted to do was just act out even more. Does that make sense? Like, she was like, you're not being like nice or whatever. Not that she would say that, but that's how I think she was feeling. And so I literally, ever since, I've just poured into her and poured in just like love and like just like the sweet little energy. And like, if she doesn't listen to what I have to say, I'll say, oh, this is really making my heart cry. Like, I would just love if you just like listen, and you know, if you need like a few moments, I can give you like 2 minutes if you want to regroup. And one time she goes, I need to pray. So she went to the couch. I'm not even lying. She's like a toddler. Because she doesn't like to use potty, like go to the bathroom before we go to like the park or something. And so I was like, you know, hey, can you please like go potty before we go? Like, there's not going to be a bathroom, you know, and like the public bathrooms are probably the best. And so she was like, no, I don't want to go. I don't need to go. And I go, I know you don't need to. I understand. Like, I get it. And I said, but just try for me. Like, if you can just try, like, it'll make me so happy. And she was like, no. And so finally she's like, I just need to go pray. She laid on the couch. She prayed. She said, she goes, God, please help me pee. She went up and she went pee. I swear. I was like, what is happening?
That's adorable.
Yes. It was like, I was like, okay, that is just like the sweetest thing I think I've ever even seen ever. And I don't know. When I pour love into like a child or like a little kid that I nanny for, even for like those short like hours of the day that I'm with them, I feel them like love, like appreciating me more. Do you know what I mean? Where if I'm like if I do like the if then, if you do this, then I'll do this. If you are good, then I'll give you this. Or if you don't do this, then I'm going to do this. You know, it's like, actually, it's like, oh, buddy, like, hey, can we please like use our inside voices? Or, oh, buddy, like, actually, I don't like being hit. Like, it kind of hurts me. But I was like, but I love you. I always end it with like, but I love you. But you're so kind. Like, but you're so fun. But we can do something else. And so I've just seen like really big positive reinforcement in that.
That's so amazing, because the if you do this and then is all conditional love.
Right.
And Shefali teaches me and I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. And they feel it, because we've been conditioned that it's okay, but their sweet souls are like, no, not having this. And that unconditional love you're giving them, meeting them where they're at, asking them what they need to do, or pausing to allow them to go pray and then go pee. Potties, that's what Amy would laugh at.
Yes.
The potties.
Or like I'll like say like, okay, I can give you like a 10-second timer if that's what you need to regroup, like, or whatever. And so some of them like timers, some of them don't. But I'll say, okay, I'll check back with you. But I just hope that we can do this. And like if they give me like more pushback, it's like, okay, then I'm not going to force her to go to the bathroom. She doesn't need to go. And then if she does have to go while we're at the park, that's not my fault, and that's not a bad thing. She's just going to have to use a public restroom. Like, just because I wouldn't doesn't mean she wouldn't, you know?
I love that, Kyia.
Kind of just like letting them, you know, being able to be independent in a way. But one of the little kids, it like fills my heart. He'll just like run up to me like, I love you so much. And like, just give me the giant hug. And I'm like, I literally love you. I want to eat you. You were just my favorite kid in the whole wide world. Like, whatever. But I've grown a lot more of an appreciation for toddlers in that hard age. Like I watch kids anywhere from like a year to 4. And it's like, they're all so different at every single age, but they're all so good and so pure. And so, you know, if you have a toddler at home, it's like, maybe I'm not a parent, so I get it, whatever, but like try that positive reinforcement and like not use the if then, because it doesn't work. It works after you put up a 20-minute fight and like have a tantrum, right? Because I see kids, like our parents at the library, I'll go to story time at the public library and I'll see like a kid stealing a toy from another kid and like them like crying, and the mom's like, if you don't give it back, then we're leaving. You know, I've heard it, I've seen it, and it just makes the kid want to do it more, just run around the whole story time being, you know, crazy. And so like, I don't know, it's helped a lot. Totally.
That's amazing. I love those stories, Kyia.
I know. I feel like nannying is helping me like prepare to be a mom. Maybe I want 5 kids now, not 2. I'm just kidding.
Oh, maybe twins.
Well, Char, is there anything that you want to wrap up with? Anything you want to tell anybody before we leave? A message from your heart? Maybe it's a scripture. Maybe it's literally anything that you want to leave anybody with. It could be profound, could be not, whatever.
I would just go to let all you do be done in love. It's a Bible verse. It's Amy and I's message of twins love. It's why we're here. And it's my healing and my truth. Literally from unconsciousness to consciousness. Let all you do be done in love. Yeah, that's what I would say. And I want to say, Kyia, I love you so much. I think you're so amazing.
I love you more.
I hope you can help so many people just by your authentic, amazing heart.
I try, Char. You're so sweet. Well, that's all for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Char, you're just my favorite guest ever. Don't tell Jake or anybody. But I love you so much, and thank you for taking your time to do this.
Thank you, Kyia.
Love you.
Love you.